Next on the agenda will be Mr. John Solomon, TDC Director.
Morning, Commissioners. John Solomon, Director of TDC. We have just one update for this, the meeting. Requested back in February by the County Commission to direct the TDC to discuss possible amendment of the TDC administrative contract. On 4/10, the monthly TDC meeting, the TDC Board voted to recommend amending the current administrative contract between the county and the Apalachicola Chamber of Commerce to reflect the previous administration's contract, which was Allen Incorporated, with paying $42 billable hour for administrative service to include director and financial director, and all our hours generated by other employees as TDC bill hours at $21 an hour. Also recommend that this be made retroactive to January 1st, 2019. This does not change at all the amount the administration is allowed per the length of the contract.
Ready to vote?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say something if I can before we start, please.
Go ahead.
Basically, Commissioners, this is something y'all tasked us with back in February, as Mr. Solomon stated here this morning. We've taken our time, we've been deliberate, trying not to do any knee-jerk reactions. At the end of the day, we have an administrator or a group that's over the TDC for us that are billing more hours than have ever been billed and are getting paid less funds through the current contract. So this is just a recommendation from that board. That is all it is, but it is the pleasure of this board on how to proceed.
Ready to vote?
Ms. Aaron, is the money all combined here for this board? I mean, are we going to be seeing an increase in any kind of expenditure from our county?
I believe the contract is, the maximum is still written in the
It's
contract.
still,
There's still a maximum
contained.
amount, yes.
We're just moving procedures. Okay.
Yep.
So move. I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Perry.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Matson. So all it's doing is changing the procedure of billing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That pass unanimous.
That's all I have. I really appreciate y'all's effort and patience with us getting this done with the TDC. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we having a public hearing. Coastline Rental LLC, land use and rezoning of 3.23 acre parcel. Residential to commercial, single family resident and R4 single family home industrial to C3 commercial recreation. So I think this is the one, this the public hearing where some of the people wanted to talk before.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. And of course, once the presentation is concluded, you would call for public comment, and those same individuals who spoke previously, as well as anyone else in the public that cares to speak, is welcome to during public comment.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Amy.
Good morning.
Good
This
morning.
morning, we have before us a planning and zoning public hearing for rezoning and a land use change. We do have to have the motion separated. There is a land use change requested and a rezoning request. The first one is consideration of a request for a land use change from a single-family home industry residential district to commercial recreation of a 3.23 acre parcel, also known as 889 US Highway 98, East Point, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Chester Creamer, applicant.
Is that what you gotta have now?
You have to have a motion for a land use change and a separate one for rezoning, so we'll have to do
But
two separate.
We
I'll
got to
make
do
a
the
motion.
whole,
Okay.
we got to do the public comment first.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
there-
correct.
The order of the matter would be presentation from staff, discussion by the board with staff or the attorney, whatever questions the board may have, public comment, and then once the board has finished its deliberations and received all the information, then the board would entertain a motion to approve or deny the land use change. You have to do the land use change first, or not. The land use change comes up first in your consideration.
Then before you do the motions. Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So I got to call public comments on this.
Amy, have you
I
finished?
think
I'm
that
sorry, Mr.
we'll-
Chairman. Have you finished your presentation, Ms. Amy?
No,
Okay.
not at the moment.
I'm sorry, I'm putting the cart through the hole.
This property is adjacent to the old, it used to be the Gulfview Campground. It's now Coastline's second RV park, and it is adjacent to C3 property. This is where Gulfview, it's now Coastline RV Park, and this is the property adjacent to that. You know, the county had requested them to have it rezoned because they wanted to do a commercial venture on the property. So we had requested them to come before the Board of County Commissioners to have this opportunity to have their property rezoned and have a land use change. During discussion, we had discussed with Mr. Creamer, they had decided they were not going to have restroom facilities at the site. However, if they do, that they would need to build those to meet the FEMA code, raise them to meet base flood elevation. I don't have any other discussion. We did not receive any written objections pertaining to this project. I had a few phone calls, but I did advise them if they were opposed, they would either need to be at the meeting, or they would have to submit that in writing. And I have not received anything in writing at this time.
Did anyone appear at the, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I?
Go ahead.
Did anyone appear at the Planning and Zoning Commission and lodge any objections before the
No,
commission?
we did not have anybody at the planning and zoning meeting.
Okay. And what was the recommendation from Planning and Zoning?
It was recommended to bring it to the Board of County Commissioners for approval.
Okay, thank you. Public comment?
Okay, now we got, is there any public comments on this matter?
Gentlemen, again, my name is Denise Gunnels. I own the property at 883 adjacent to the property in question, 889. Perhaps there was a reason nobody was at the zoning and planning. My first notice of this was a certified letter, which I received Saturday of last week, so I have had 9 days' notice of this. As far as the land use, and I'm certainly not an expert, so I am not real clear, and my comments are going to address both at some point, but I'll try to keep it to land use. It's R1, it needs to stay R1. I'm all about commercial development, but it doesn't need to be right here. There are other options. More to the point, and what is totally shocking to me is that, and if I could just do an analogy, I've recently heard about this Bayshore situation this morning. Can you imagine what you would be facing right now if the Bayshore developers had already poured and built? This lot is already, you want to talk about the cart before the horse. This lot is R1. I have pictures of them storing RVs on it already. It's dated by Google, October of last year. It's about 20 RVs behind the house in question, for which they are receiving compensation. That makes it a commercial venture. They just skipped y'all. There are no permits. They have already built a restaurant. It's not just a porch for a food truck to pull up to. They have already built it. No permits, nothing. So now they're going to come in and jump ahead of us and say, oh, we need to convert it now. Absolutely not.
Any more public comments?
I'm just wondering, is the owner of the commercial venture here to public comment? Can we get educated? Great, thank you. Welcome.
Here, can I?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to, can I address the people? Can I?
Just say your name, please.
No, you have to address the,
All right.
you have to address the commissioner.
I'm Jewel Steele. I'm the owner of the food truck. And as you all know, I'm the owner of Pesky Pelican Grill. Had it in East Point, was there for 2 years. And I'm not an eloquent speaker, and I am a passionate person, so I may get a little, my voice may crack a little. But as you all know, during Michael, I lost my restaurant. I think it was probably the only building in East Point that was totally annihilated. But anyway, fast forward. That is my livelihood. All of my 401k, my retirement, was in Pesky Pelican. Small amount of insurance and a food truck later. Mr. Kramer, went to church with them a time or two. They come to my restaurant a time or two. And they were kind enough, they knew I needed a spot to park it. They said, how about this? And I asked if they could build me a pole barn. Well, I don't know all about county procedure and permits, but we did. I come to talk to Amy, and then I went to the health department. I think his name was Gary. I'm not real sure. But anyway, so we proceeded from there. And then, you know, my food trailer, you know, my pole barn, it kind of grew. It become, oh gosh, I'm gonna have something nice. I'm gonna have something nice. And it was just out of the generosity of them allowing me their land. Okay, I thought it was commercial. Really didn't think it would matter. I didn't really give it any thought. So if that's anyone's fault, that's my fault. And you know, they're not charging me one dime, not even one dime. So, you know, I'm just asking y'all to just, you know, don't blame them for something that I might have done, because, you know, I'm pretty big here. I can take that responsibility. And I tried the permits, you know, I tried to get all the permits that I needed. Maybe I didn't get the right ones, I'm not real sure. But, you know, here I am. It's me.
And they did come in and get a pole barn permit. It was residential property, there's a house on the property, so that allows them for a pole barn. In retrospect, we didn't realize it was going to be for Pesky Pelican. Once we did contact the Creamers and let them know you do need to have your property rezoned. So during that process, they did get a pole barn permit, and they have gotten a permit to do some modifications to the pole barn, but they were fully aware that once we had the conversation that they would have to have a rezoning to this property before that they could use it commercially.
Commissioners, I'm Garrett Kramer. Lived here all my life. I didn't realize I was a criminal. First of all, I would like to say, as far as storing units and all this kind of stuff, we do have a few units that we keep behind that house on that parcel of property. We aren't charging anybody monies. It's not a commercial storage area. As far as the permitting goes, we have got, that's the reason why we're here. The building department come up to us and said, hey, listen, you know, if you want to operate a food truck on that piece of property, you need to have it zoned here for this. That's why we're here today. We built a pole barn for people when she sells the food out of the food truck, which is certified by the state. If she pulls that out tomorrow, it's just a pole barn. It may be fancy. We are putting screen in it to keep people from getting eat up by mosquitoes and yellow flies, and it is a beautiful pole barn. But at the end of the day, if she pulls her trailer out, I can't cook a French fry. It is not a restaurant. Any of you can come look at it anytime you want. The building inspector's been there more times than probably any project in this county. The building department has been gracious, has contacted us, said you need to get this permit. We've came over here, Miss Amy can tell you, and we've got them, A, B, C, and D. This has not been built without the county's knowledge like it's been portrayed. We're not trying to hide anything from the county. This is simply trying to get this lady put back in business where she can make a living. She's not asking for a handout. She's trying to work, and she can employ people as well. There's food trucks all over this county. We're asking to do the same thing. We're not building a restaurant. The day an hour she decides to retire, We'll use that building for our guests. They can get out there and grill them a hamburger, prop up by a hammock. It's a beautiful spot. We're not developing it. We're not turning it into RV sites. If that was the case, we'd come to you guys with a big commercial site plan. That's not what we're doing here. There's no hidden agendas here, nothing to hide. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more public comments?
Hello, Robin Hilton here again. I just want to say that I own a property that is in the Bay Breeze subdivision, and I didn't know anything about any of this going on until I did see that there was a building being built. From what I saw, I drove around, in fact, today, and I saw nothing posted, no permits. So if it's permitted to build, there is supposed to be a posted building permit somewhere around that building to show that they're allowed to build. Again, being in residential single family, as a real estate agent, I look at, now if they're going to pass to allow somebody after the fact to go ahead and move forward with their business after the fact, when they know they're in residential single family, am I allowed to tell my clients, sure, go ahead and do it. The commission will pass it. They've set a precedent. They're going to pass it for somebody else. Sure, they're sorry. Sure, they didn't mean to do it. They didn't know. They were ignorant. So let's just go ahead and let it go. However, how is that going to affect the residential property next to it? Does somebody here on the board, will any of you say to yourself, do I want to live next to a restaurant? I built my house on this beautiful bayfront property, and now somebody wants to change the zoning and put a restaurant right next to me. Do I want to smell their food? Do I want to hear the noise of people coming around and clattering at who knows what hours? Is this something that you guys, would any of you want to be, after you built your house or had your plans to build your house, want to move and live right next door to a restaurant? Does any of you, can you tell me, any of you want to do that? Any of you commissioners, would you want to do that?
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is public comment. You're not required to answer any questions. I mean, you used to have that discretion, but you're not required to, and typically you don't. You just receive the public comment.
Anyway, I just want to say that it puts me in a bad position as a real estate agent, because what do I tell my clients? They're going to look at this and say, hey, they did it without permits. And then they're going to come to the commission and say, please forgive me. And is the commission going to turn around and say, well, you already went and spent all this money. We don't really care about those other people who have single-family residential properties next to you. All we care about is the C3. Now, those people have over 3 acres. And if they're in C3 already, that's already owned, why not just move the trailer into one of the C3 properties already? They're already there. They're already zoned C3. Why do they have to pick a residential single-family property to put their restaurant on? Just move it on to a C3 that's already there. They own them. So just move it. If it's just a trailer, it's no big deal. Thank you.
Thank you.
And as far as advertisement, planning and zoning, we're not required to notify all of the property owners adjacent, but once it goes to a public hearing and we set a public hearing, we have to notify every adjacent property that is touching this property. So all of the neighbors that is adjacent to this property were notified by certified mail.
Hi.
Good morning.
Morning. My name's Beverly Sarkey, And I wouldn't mind living next to a restaurant. You know, I think that's part of the problem we have here with trying to separate and build outside of towns, and this is why subdivisions have developed. And I like the use of, you know, I like living downtown near restaurants and coffee shops, and I like that idea. But that's not why I'm up here. I'm up here because I've lived here for 1 year in Apalachicola. My husband and I came here because it's a beautiful area. But I've noticed that it's who you know here that you get things done. And I think we should follow the rules, that we should have good rules set up to protect the land. And, you know, there can be exceptions, but we have to go by the rules. Not because, and I'm not opposed to helping people out who need help. I think that's good. I want to do that. But the rules are the rules for everyone. So that's kind of what I see as the issue here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jamie Liang. Excuse me, I live at 147 17th Street in Apalachicola. My concern, I have sympathy with the situation, but we can't afford in Franklin County to allow our decisions be made by sympathies. As I said before, I think we're at the cusp in this county. This is the last pristine area in the state of Florida, the last area that hasn't been run over by development. And we have something really special here. We can't do things by allowing things to be permitted from the back end. We have to be mindful of planning and, as the lady said before me, following the rules. The reason why this is important is because there is a precedent set. Once you open the floodgates for making exceptions, it opens a big gateway for the next person to come in, the next developer, the next people that break the rules in allowing things in. So I would urge you to look at this critically. We can't afford to allow building to go ahead and after the fact permit it. We can't allow developments to come in who radically change the structure of our plan, because more will come, and the character of this county will change. It'll become hodgepodge, it'll be run over. We have to decide where we want the county to go in terms of development, and then stick to our rules as laid out in our comp plan and in our zoning laws. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What I'm hearing, I'm Jules Still again, Pesky Pelican. What I'm hearing is that we didn't obtain permits, or we didn't seek permits, and it's all after the fact. Well, we did. We come to you, didn't I, Amy? I come to you before the fact.
I think Mr. Chester and Garrett, they had a contractor come in and get a permit for a pole barn.
Exactly. So, you know, the misconception that we come in and slid in the back door is a misconception. You just haven't been informed. We did come in the front door. We did seek permits. Okay? Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
If I may, picture of the pole barn, along with their sign as shows, sorry, as it showed. You can see my pickup, well, my husband's pickup truck, he lets me drive it sometimes, in the, in our driveway right next door. I'm sorry, sir. There's one more.
Thank you.
One other thing that I heard, and I'm going to sit down after a while and I'm going to let everybody talk, but one other thing that I heard from, I think, the real estate agent, she said that there were, how would you like for your house to be built, or a restaurant to be built next to your house? There is no house next to this property. There are actually, what, two vacant lots, and I don't know, or acres, I don't know, but they're vacant. There's nobody there. Now, there is a house in the rear at 897, but that is owned by the Kramers, you know, and if anyone have a complaint, it'd be the Kramers, you know. So there is no house. And if someone chooses to build a house next to what they're calling the restaurant or the food truck or whatever, you know, that's their choice, as I see it, so. Anyway, but there is no structure next to it on the next two lots, so. But I'm not going to come back up here regardless. So I want to thank you all very, very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. There any more public comment?
Hello again, gentlemen. It really hurts my heart to hear what's going on. And it's hard, but you know what? I've taught for over 30 years, and I know that you have to keep your rules firm as a teacher, because once you let it go, there's chaos. And I want what's best for this county, all right? The only thing I can say here, and I would really like you to listen to this one point. When you buy something, it's your dream. And when you buy something in Franklin County, you know the rules. You bought it because you wanted to build your beautiful home, even if it's not there yet. And if you bought it and it was commercial, you knew what you could do with it. I think we all need to keep that in mind, because it hurts me to know that I have people I love on both sides of this. So please make your decisions carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more public comments?
I guess I'm confused. Is this residential property that there's a commercial building on?
It is residential property as it exists today.
Okay.
They're requesting a land use and rezoning.
How do you-
When the permit was issued, there is a structure already on the property, and that does allow for them to have a pole barn. So they permitted a pole barn.
Right, but how do you get a permit for a food truck on a residential property?
At the time we issued the permit, we were not aware that it was going to be used in that capacity. That's
Why-
when we notified the Kramers.
You weren't aware that it was going to be
That the pole barn was going to be commercial, at that time, no. But once we were made aware, I contacted the Kramers, and they came in pretty quick.
okay.
And that's when they was requesting the,
And that's why we're having the
land use
hearing.
and
That's
rezoning.
why we're having the hearing today.
That's why we're here today. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment as far as the permitting. I was on the property, on the county site, and I looked up every single permit for 889 Highway 98. The last permit that is on the public site is shown to be done in 2015, and that was for a re-roof job. There was nothing on the county site showing any other permits for that particular property. If they are, they're not posted. It's not public information. Number two is that, yes, those are single-family lots that we bought that are residential, that are to the west of that particular property that is in controversy right now. Now, a lot of people are planning on building their homes on those lots. It doesn't have to be right away, but those lots were bought previous to any of this going on. So just please keep that in mind. Thank you.
My name is Wanda Rose. I'm the agent that sold Denise and Robert their property. When they looked at the property, they realized that there was a small RV park next to them, and they didn't have any concern with it. Then Coastline came in and started developing it. It's a beautiful RV park. I think it's gorgeous. They've done a great job for our community. Ever since I've been in this area, since 2002, I've always said people need to do a development with nice RV parks. And Coastline has done it. They have a lot of people that come there. They're having people that come back. I have to say it's great for this area. And the lady that has the pesky Peloton, I feel sorry for her that she lost her property. And I don't think that the Gunnells and Robin are against the restaurant per se. We need restaurants. It's just that it's going to be located next to their property, which is zoned residential. Who's to say what will happen with the restaurant? We all know how things change. But we're not against a restaurant. We're not against RV park. It's just that house that the Coastal Rentals purchased, that 3.23 acres there, was zoned R1 and R4, which was residential. Now they want to make it commercial, and that's not what my clients intended on buying, was a property next to commercial property. So that's all I have to say.
Commissioners, I'd just like to say one more thing, and then I won't come back up either. This is continuing to be called a restaurant. This is not a restaurant. I'm not going in the restaurant business. This is a food truck. And at the end of the day, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, if Miss Jewel decides to leave and go to Panama City or whatever, she pulls her food truck out of there. It was all built mobile. Miss Amy Ham, we done the same way with our cottages. It's built mobile. It may look like a humongous structure, but it's built mobile. That thing can go out of there. I can't cook one thing. Don't want to cook anything. When we got this pole barn here, it's no different than if somebody asked Miss Jewel to come to her property and cook for people. We're here because the county asked us to come here to get it zoned this way because we didn't know. We didn't know that you had to be a commercial property to have a food vendor on the property. There's food trucks all over this county. All over this county. County right-of-ways, and I think they're great. But at the end of the day, this is not a restaurant. When she pulls this food truck out, it is only our building that we have built, and then it would be used by our guests. We don't have any big plans for developing this side of this property. If we did, we would be here. And we'd ask you for permits to do this, A, B, and C. But that's not the case. So at the end of the day, this is just still a food truck. That's all it is, which she is permitted by the state to be able to operate. Thank you.
I find it a little difficult to believe that a businessman who owns as much property and business as Mr. Creamer doesn't realize he needs permits to do business and commercial permits to do commercial business. That said, I love food trucks. I didn't get this big by not eating, okay? But there are other options for Miss Jewell. There are numerous sites in East Point that could host the Pesky Pelican food truck. We all know how well the Fisherman's Wife did for God knows how many years in Carabel. As far as the RV park goes itself, we were recently in an RV park, a resort, that had food truck night. And a couple of nights a week, different food trucks would come in. They just pull into a certain spot there, plug in, serve for a few hours, and then they leave. So if this pole barn is so easy to move, let's move it. As for Coastline Rentals, given the severity of their current violations, I ask that the county commission deny all their requests, require them to move all the RV storage units, there's about 20, I have pictures of them, from behind the residentially zoned property, remove the commercial structure, he said it's easy to move, and the sign that has already been erected without proper zoning or permits. Failure to act on these abuses by Coastline Rentals sets an inexcusable precedent, as others have already mentioned. It's going to lead to others just flagrantly disregarding the ordinances and our government, and that's just totally disrespectful to Franklin County government and the commissioners, as well as the citizens.
At the end of the day, what you're left with is a land use issue. Regardless of anybody's intentions, what they're going to do with the property, what you will have is one commercially zoned property amongst R1 residential. That's what you need to keep in mind. It's a land use issue. I mean, there's specific issues that are important to people, but the question is, are you going to retroactively approve this change in zoning? So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, I know this is a public hearing, but what I'm gonna ask you to do is, to the future talkers, just state your facts, whether you're against it, whether you're for it, and then we won't be doing the going back and forth after you hear this side and the back and the forth, the back and the forth. So that's all. Any more public comment? There ain't no more public comment. Everybody that done talked to wanted to talk. Okay, commissioners, it's pleasure of the board. Let's see this is what we do. Make decisions. Pleasure of the board on this. Y'all want discussion?
I want to say something before we get started.
Okay.
And just as a point of clarification, I understand about property owners' rights. I think this whole commission does, everybody in the room does. But there are two property owners here, not one. They have rights, they have, I think the thing is, this is, in good faith, they didn't understand that this was going to be an issue. As soon as they saw it was an issue, they have done the appropriate thing to try to come to the county to get what they were after for this land. They have not done anything unpermitted. They've been permitted for what they've done. This property directly is adjacent to their RV park that's there and has been there probably most of my life. It was a different owner, different name, but it's the same stuff. And at the end of the day, I mean, I just want to give you my personal perspective on it. Growing up in East Point, we were one block off Highway 98. My dad built there and it was all residential, the whole neighborhood. But the property directly in front of us became Charlie's Lounge. And it was live, all you want to know, till 2 or 3 o'clock every Saturday and Sunday morning. But not at one time did my father, who was in the seafood industry, come before this Board of County Commissioners trying to cry foul because someone developed their property. So I make a motion to approve it.
I second it.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones to approve, second by Commissioner Massey.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order, the motion would be first to
Land
change
use.
the land use.
Yeah, that's what I was after.
Say again.
We got, this for changing the land use? That's what we're voting on. now.
Okay. Do we have to?
I got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I believe in a standard of practice. And I'm very concerned about checkerboard zoning. And as I have traveled this county and listened to people, there's an old North Florida look that we enjoy here that makes the characteristic of who we are as Franklin County. And we are not looking like other counties and other venues. We are the North Florida old look of this development in this area. And my concern is that we always have to maintain a standard of practice so we don't go through the crazy cycle. And I just am very concerned about spotty zoning. I think it changes the perspective of the values of our property. We need to maintain property values, particularly with the issues we're going to be looking at with our budget coming up and the hurricane issues and all of that. And we need to have good, solid direction so our realtors understand the standard of practice that this county has relative to development. As a county commission, we need to uphold the issues of our planning and zoning department and going through the research that they do. So I would be opposed to any changes in zoning relative to spotty zoning like this, so that we have some sanity here and we start to begin to develop good, solid developmental criteria. Who knows? This can obviously get us all kinds of grant favors in the future when developers understand what the rules are and what we understand, and we play a standard of practice. So I'd say just leave it as it is and no change necessary.
Okay. This is, if you look at it, this is, the issue is a pole barn, right? On a pole barn and
It's an enclosed pole barn.
that's the issue. Well, you said they had a piece of property, had another structure on the property, right?
Yes, as it sits now, it's residential. There is a house on the property. When we do permitting, we know that we can't issue a secondary structure before the primary structure's in place. So when the permit was issued, there was a house on the property, which allows for them to have a secondary structure to be built. The use of the structure has spurred the land use and rezoning. But as it sits right now, we technically would not require them to move this off their property because R1 single family, it's just the use would have to be relocated because they could not run a commercial venture from a residential property.
They could not run one. Okay.
No, sir.
That truck is mobile, right? That
Yes, sir.
Food truck.
Yes, sir.
It becomes
Is there,
commercial.
wait a minute. You had your say, let me have mine. Is there any law saying what about the truck? I mean,
As a property owner, they can store their food truck on residential property, but they wouldn't be able to utilize it commercially on that property. But it is a movable food truck. The pavilion is just, the pole barn is just an accessory to the food truck.
That right, lawyer? I mean, if the log ain't cooking on your property,
Well, Ms. Amy is correct, you cannot run a commercial venture off of residentially zoned property. I mean, that is a correct statement, Mr. Chairman.
I know that, but now if they change it over to commercial,
If the property was to have the land use and rezoning, they would be allowed to utilize it commercially and run their food truck from that site.
okay. All right, any more discussion? Go ahead. Y'all ready for the vote? I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
That passes 4-1. Okay, now we got to do whatever.
And now we have the rezoning portion. There's a consideration of a request to rezone from R4 and R1 single-family home industry and residential to C3 commercial recreation of a 3.23 acre parcel, also known as 889 US Highway 98, East Point, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Chester Creamer. He's the applicant.
So moved.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Commissioner Massey,
So,
second by Commissioner Jones. Any discussion on this?
Just to understand, we have a motion now to consider rezoning this property from R residential to now commercial.
That is correct.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Pass 4-1. That's it. That concludes the public that concludes the public hearing. Next on the agenda will be Miss Amy Kelly, Advisory Board of Adjustment.
This morning, we have a recommendation for approval. It was a 2-to-1 vote. It's a consideration of a request to raise the existing house above base flood elevation, along with the decks in the same location as previously existed over the past 45 years on the property described as 1610 Gulf Avenue, Carabel, Franklin County, Florida. Request submitted by Robert Mulligren and Leslie Denhard. They're the applicants.
How did they vote on it at the PMZ?
This went to the Board of Adjustments, and there was a 2-to-1 vote to recommend in favor.
All right. So moved.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
what was the one against, raising this up and get it above base flood? Why would you not want to do that?
Well, that's what they're wanting to do. They're
I know,
wanting
but
to
why
raise
would-
it.
Why would you not want them to do that, is what I'm saying? You had somebody vote against it.
We had one that voted against. They don't believe the house is structured. They need some structural work. The house was not deemed over 50% destroyed, but raising the house above base flood elevation gives them the opportunity to do the necessary repairs to the house.
So moved.
Second.
Mr.
I got a
Chairman,
motion on. Yes, sir.
just to clarify for the record, Mr. Chairman, that although the house is being allowed to raise up on pilings above the base flood, they're not going to go above your maximum height restriction. That was a discussion that was
Yes.
held at the Board of
That is
Adjustment. And I thought
correct.
it's important to have that as part of the record of this board's action this morning.
So, okay, so it's gonna be at our standards and meet our code, right?
It'll
Yes,
meet
sir.
the base flood elevation, but will not exceed the height restrictions.
Okay. That, Seems to me that seems like a good thing, and they gonna work on the house.
Yes, sir. And that's all for the Board of Adjustments.
All,
Wait, gotta
Oh,
vote.
I'm sorry.
any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
I'm gonna go get Mark. Where'd you go? Okay.
Next on the agenda will be Ms. Amy Kelly. Planning and zoning report.
Okay. This morning, we have a critical shoreline application. It was a recommended approval, unanimous vote. Member Riegelmeyer did recuse himself. It's a consideration of a request to construct a single-family private dock on property described as Lot 11, Bay Cove Village, 2019 Turpentine Trail, St. George Island, Franklin County, Florida. The proposed dock will have a 371-foot by 4-foot access walkway with an 8-foot by 20-foot terminus and two 12 by 20 boat lifts. The applicant has the DEP permit, but will be contingent upon receiving the Army Corps of Engineers permit. Request submitted by Garlic Environmental Associates, agent for Steve and Heather Rash, applicant, and they do have a proposed house on the property.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones. It was second by two of them on Parrish and Mass. Any more discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
Okay. The next item was consideration of a request for a land use change from commercial and residential to Serenity Seaside Resort PUD, and a rezoning change from the C2 commercial business and R2 single-family mobile home to Serenity Seaside Resort PUD of a 57.08 acre parcel located in section 36, township 8 south, range 7 west, also known as 105 Island Drive in East Point, Florida. This request was submitted by Garlic Environmental Associates, agent for Serenity Seaside Resort LLC is the applicant. There was a motion made to recommend denying the request, which failed on a 3-3 vote. There was a motion made by P&Z to recommend approving the request, which failed on a 3-3 vote. So the board, or the Planning and Zoning Commission could not reach an agreement to make a recommendation to y'all. And we said we would bring this to y'all. My recommendation is to go ahead and schedule a public hearing on this matter. You're not approving anything or disapproving anything at this time. We would just be scheduling a public hearing to hear all the evidence and then make a decision.
Okay. On this issue, this is the one we were talking about earlier this morning. And now it's the commission time to talk now. So I'm gonna start off with a little discussion on this. First thing, what you said a 3-3 vote? Why wasn't an odd number? Don't be no odd number in that planning zone.
Well, it depends on how many show up for the meeting. I think there are supposed to be an odd number of members, but not everyone show up.
Okay.
And there's some vacant seats, I believe, as well.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Now, on this other issue, now, this going to, for the public hearing, back there when I went to school, they said, well, when you come up with an issue, you're supposed to give people a public hearing. I mean, and that don't mean that you gonna vote for it. You still got the right to vote either for it or against it.
Right.
But by right, I was told that we supposed to give a public hearing, but any more discussion, I'm gonna leave that to the pleasure of the board. And I'm a public hearing, cause that's the right thing to do. And then everything come out either for or against it. The ones who talked this morning, you come back and you'll have more time to talk. I mean, this was a regular meeting. We had a large agenda, so I had to cut your time in short. But when you get in a public hearing, you can talk as long as you want. Just try to keep everybody repeating themselves the same thing over and over. But anyway, the pleasure to vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Mm-hmm.
this is such a profound project that I would recommend, to enhance our public hearing opportunity, that we consider a professional moderator that helps direct this public hearing and gives some summaries as to what's been said, maybe chalkboard illustrations. I feel that it's important that we get good data from all parties in preparation for this public hearing. And thirdly, I would think that independently, all of us as commissioners need to take a field trip out there and get a feel for what this is all about. And so I would recommend all of those considerations as we look at a public hearing and consider its enhancement.
Motion to approve going to a public hearing without a moderator.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Parrish. Discussion.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Bolt, some things a good idea, but in this case, it's not that, it haven't got to the point where I need a professional to tell us how to do the job. I mean, we know what it was, but I know it's a big issue. We got to deal with big and little. That's what the people put us in for. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I have a moment of personal privilege, please?
yeah.
Commissioner Bolt, I grew up in East Point. I've already walked this property. I walked this property growing up. I know everything around there. There's not anywhere there. I can tell you what's high, I can tell you what's dry, I can tell you what's wet, because I grew up in East Point. So, none of us as commissioners are opposed to public input. None of us are walled off from people and not allowing them to speak with us or meet with us. I probably met with more people about this project than I have any other project in the 2.5 years I've been on the commission. So for there to be a back and forth between us, that somehow this commission's not trying to be forthright, we're not open to the public, we're not accessible, I take exception to. And I want to make sure that you're aware of that.
I am profoundly aware of it.
I don't think you are, sir.
I just want to compliment that passion
It's not a
by just
compliment.
making sure that we have good, healthy processes we
We
consider.
do. That's why we're here.
There are facilitators for good, healthy process. And I've seen moderators not tell us what to do, but to simply summarize the multiple facts in a complex decision like this that helps us do our job the very best we can do. So that was why I thought that a moderator would be welcomed, along with good data and input, to help us do the very job that the people have put us here to do.
Well, it's gonna be a lot of these coming in the future. Moving forward, it's gonna be people coming in and they're gonna want a bill. I mean, that's what it is gonna be growth one day, so it don't take a moderator to say yes or no. Just take a, the people, I don't believe the people put me in here to make a decision. And if I get to a moderator, I don't think we need no moderator on this. I mean, if we do, and the board vote for that, I'll go along with it. But me personally, I don't need no moderator to make my decision. Any more discussion?
Yes, I got one comment. As we listened to a lot of the public comment earlier today, I think a lot of it centered around the density of this proposed project. And I'm just putting this out there for the developer to really think about your density and whether you want to make concessions as far as the density goes. I know you have 57 acres of property here, and I know you're not planning on utilizing a lot of that. A lot of that is in wetlands and other issues that you can't utilize the wetlands anyway, but I think most of the opposition was opposed to a lot of the density, so much density on such a small area. I think that was a big issue. So that's just a comment for something for you to think about before you come back to a public hearing where people are really going to examine exactly what you've done. I do know that you've made some changes. I understand that, but you've heard the comment from the people here today, and some people don't want you to do anything. Well, that's not going to work. But you need to really listen to your neighbors, and are there certain concessions that you could make that would make the numbers still work, but lower the density of the project? I personally like the hotel. I just do, because East Point doesn't have one, because of the hotels, the rooms that we have here now are constantly full. I think that's an advantage. But is there a way that you can do something with making the lots a little bigger on your residential side to try to help appease, should I use that word, to kind of appease some of the opponents of the project, so that we all are working together as a community? And I just want to put that out there.
Go ahead, sir.
Dan Garlick for Serenity Seaside. Yes, this thing's a moving target. We've actually dropped the density another
Mr. Chairman,
20.
we've already had public comment. If you go with one, you're gonna have to let everybody else speak again. So.
Okay, I was just going to say, anybody's willing to come on the property, call me. We'll take it.
Sorry about that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, a couple of things. One thing is that, being that we're probably going to have twice as many people here for the public hearing, would the board consider scheduling at 1:30 in the afternoon so we can take care of all of our agenda business and then, give everyone a chance to talk? I know you said as long as they want, but we do have a policy as a time limit.
It's going to be the time limit.
Yeah, but, in order to really give everyone a fair chance to say, well, how does the board feel about a 1:30 public hearing? Because we have to I got to advertise it, so.
Yeah, well, the reason, I better clarify that. Not long as they want it, but they will have the minimum time.
Yes.
The maximum time. I cut it this morning because this was a scheduled meeting, and that was going to come and cut into our meeting.
Yes, sir.
And hold it up.
But it'll be longer than this morning, yeah.
Their time won't be cut. Your time won't be cut at the public hearing if we vote that way.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So my first question was about the 1:30, how does it?
No, we need to vote first.
Let's see if we're ever going to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
Oh.
We've not voted for that.
Trying to incorporate it, okay.
All right, y'all ready to vote?
No, we're voting for a public hearing without a moderator.
Right. Yes, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimous. I would like to see Mr. Marone, we might have to move this to a bigger place. I don't know what y'all think. It'll be all right if this all coming.
The only big room we have is the courtroom, and the courtroom acoustics are not as good as this room.
Yeah.
I think if you had this as a single hearing, at 1:30 in the afternoon or some specific time, so that the only people here are for that purpose, I think the room would be.
I think you'll be fine.
You think it'll be big enough?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I think it'll be fine.
Just was making sure. Well, that passes Okay.
Well,
What else?
so we could.
I'll make a motion that we hold the public hearing at 1:30 on the date to be determined.
Yes, sir.
So that allows everybody ample time and we can get through with county business before we attack this,
Yes,
should I say, quote, controversial project?
yes.
Second.
Okay, I got a motion on the floor for 1:30 public hearing. Motion was made by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Any more discussion on that? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That passes unanimously.
And if I could, one more thing, Commissioners, and Commissioner Bolt, I'll say this to you in reference to your suggestion earlier. I know it was not your intention to make it seem like your staff was not capable of gathering the data and presenting that to the board in a manner.
Correct.
But they are. So I'd recommend that each of you talk to your staff specifically about this and realize just how much information we have actually gathered on
Excellent.
that, which will make the public hearing that more productive, if I could use that word.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda business. Where we at?
Can't get rid of Amy, can you?
I am so sorry.
We don't.
Oh, it's still Miss Amy.
Yes, sir. I'm not going to read this verbatim. I did submit it to be a part of your package, and we do have copies. We do have copies of this out front. What this is it's a yearly project report that I do have to submit to recertify with the community rating system, which allows us to gather points through different elements of our National Flood Insurance Program to save additional monies on their policies. Right now, we do enough homework that it saves constituents in a special flood hazard area that has flood insurance. It saves them 15% off their premiums. So we're trying to recertify with that. This goes over our local mitigation strategy report, which gives a bunch of different projects that have either been completed, deleted, or incorporated into the local mitigation strategy. And a part of this is that I advertise that we have submitted this to the Board of County Commissioners in a public setting, and that I have made it public to your constituents and different hosts. So basically, I'm just reporting that this is our progress report for the year, so that I can submit it to our recertification process.
And just to add on to this, so the LMS is something that's been in effect for years and years and years, or maybe even 20 years, and it gets modified every year, once a year or twice a year. But just to let you know, and really Commissioner Bowman, for your benefit, I think it's Project 18 or 21 down here. We have here we are, project where it is, Alligator Point Road. Anyway, Alligator Point, here we are, Project 24 ongoing. Project is to move road inland and acquire road law. So we've updated this thing specifically to try and deal with this with the path where we're going now. And this is the kind of thing you have to have in there to get points on different grants. So we have a lot of projects in here. It's updated periodically.
Okay, good.
All right, pleasure to vote.
I don't need a motion.
We don't need a motion. I just need to make you aware, of the different projects through publication.
Okay.
We don't have to have a motion or anything, but I do appreciate your time.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, y'all have a good day.
Keep up the good work. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda will be Mr. Chris Rito, Appalachia Planner and Zoning Council.
Hey, Chris.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for having me today.
How you doing?
Very good, very good. I'm just here to give you a brief update on what your Regional Plan Council has been up to with respect to Franklin County. Our federal partners through the Economic Development Administration support us through providing funding to help staff an economic development planner that works in the region. And we've been pretty fortunate over the past year to land 2 grants that will impact Franklin County. The first one is a Franklin County long-term recovery strategy. And that was a proposal that we had your cooperation with, as well as the City of Carabel and City of Apalachicola, to provide some match funding that we use to leverage some EDA dollars. And this is a strategy that we're going to start working on here very soon. And its goal is really to increase commercial activity and jobs in Franklin County through novel planning policies and business recruitment strategies. So what you'll end up with eventually is a strategy that will hopefully enhance the opportunities, the economic development opportunities in the county and in Appalachia and Carabel as well. And I want to be careful because with the meeting that you had this morning and everyone's interest in comprehensive planning, we've laid out some project criteria with respect to this plan. I want to go over 2 of them. Economic development that promotes new commercial building and enhancements to the built environment, which protect community sense of place through improved comp plan policies and land development ordinances. And secondly, economic development that will preserve and enhance community character and maritime culture found in Franklin County. So this study is not something that, or strategy isn't going to come in and completely transform Franklin County. It's try to enhance existing economic development opportunities while preserving Franklin County's current nature. So, second thing that we were able to get is a disaster resilience coordinator through Hurricane Irma dollars through EDA. Every regional planning council in the state was able to land a 2-year contract with EDA, and that's an additional staff person that's going to be working with local governments throughout our 9-county region, helping with hurricane recovery, specifically with respect to economic development. That person in our office was just hired 2 weeks ago, Ben Chandler, and he's going to be making his way around the region, providing resources as a liaison between local, state, and federal resources. Third thing I want to mention is the Restore Grant Pot 3 administration. The Gulf Coast Consortium through the BP oil spill monies has, obviously there's lots of different pots of money through Restore. You currently have a consultant, Langton and Associates, that does Pot 1 administration for you?
Not quite currently, we will in the
Almost?
last 15 minutes.
Okay. Very soon.
Very soon.
Let the cat out of the bag. But it's a very complex process, lots of rules and procedures. The planning councils have been asked to help be an economical solution for Pot 3 grant administration. So we've already executed contracts with Gulf and Jefferson County. We would hope that Franklin County would consider using the Regional Planning Council as well, since we'll be doing that for the other 2 counties in our region. So I'm just giving you an update on that as well.
I'm going to say, I recommend to support that.
Okay.
In the case of Pot 3, when Langton, we get them in the contract, they cannot do Pot 3 for us because of their past associates with consortium. So if we're going to have an outside firm, then the Regional Planners Council is perfect. Just to give you an update publicly, Chris, where we are with Pot 3. Pot 3, our projects are our new EOC and dredging the East Point Channel, the 2-mile channel, and then ultimately something with the oyster industry. So those are 4 projects in Pot 3. Our Pot 3 are the Corps of Engineers. You may or may not have any role to play with the Corps of Engineers dredging because that's going to be a transfer between the Corps of Engineers and our Pot 3. When it comes to EOC, we've asked for a $3 million appropriation to aid the amount of money we have in Pot 3, and we are waiting for the legislature we don't know yet. So in fact, it may be that we don't have anything going on in Pot 3 for a period of time, or we may have lots of things going on, depending on what our outside funding is. And the oyster industry is a project that is long-term development. I mean, we're probably 5 years away from that.
And just to give you a quick overview of the way the contract is structured that we have with Gulf and Jefferson, it's basically an annual contract, a 3-year contract. All this process may go on from 12 to 15 years, but it's an amount not to exceed $30,000 per year in grant admin, and it's based on the activities that we conduct. Some years it may be less than 30. It just depends, and this is a learning process for all of us. So we structured our contract very similar to the way the consultant for the Gulf Coast Consortium structured theirs.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I haven't seen the contract. I know Joe and I looked at drafts. As far as I'm concerned, if the board, I'm satisfied you all the ones that do Pot 3 for us. If the board wants to do a contract contingent upon the attorney review and negotiation, that's fine with me. I mean, right now, the $30,000 a year, of course, is a 0 fee if you don't do any work. But as far as I'm concerned, if you all want to negotiate something,
Those monies would come out of?
Would come out of the Pot 3.
I'll make a motion to proceed with, have the attorney look it up, developing a contract with ARPC.
Second.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and send that contract over revised for Franklin County.
Michael, you have something for,
Did you address the GIS yet?
Not yet.
let's do that while he's here.
Next thing I have, or you want to go ahead? Okay. We've, the regional council, just so as a reminder, we basically are a governmental entity that is owned by the counties for our 9-county region. And Commissioner Jones serves as your representative for Franklin County, is also our secretary treasurer and serves on our executive committee. But our mission is really to serve our local governments. The counties pay annual dues, and we take those dues and we leverage that money to go out and do federal grants. But over the years, our responsibilities have changed and evolved, and we've tried to figure out how can we best serve the counties. And one of the areas that I've noticed over the past 5 years is most of our counties in this region are rural and they don't have a lot of GIS capabilities. So in working with other councils across the state and in other states in the southeast, they've been able to provide kind of a GIS service in a central location to ensure that some of the smaller counties that can't afford it, instead of paying a full-time position with benefits and the software that's expensive and the training that goes along with it, we can house that and provide that service regionally. We've been doing it for Gadsden County for the past year, and we're hoping to expand that, and we're proposing that we enter into a similar agreement with Franklin County.
I'll just summarize my item. Basically, he gave you the update. He sent a contract he has with Gadsden County doing the same services. He sent that to us. Attorney Schuler has a copy of that. So the attorney's just basically waiting for your authority to tweak it, negotiate with Chris, and we move on with that contract also.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Michael, that contract, as I remember it, that's a not to exceed 10,000 amount, is the way it was originally with Gadsden,
Yes.
correct?
It's based on what you need. So we are only trying to cover our costs. As a governmental entity, we don't need to make a profit. We just need to cover our costs. So if we put this contract together that worked for Gadsden County, we feel like we'll come out, we'll sit down with your planning staff, understand your needs, install software, organize files, update future land use maps, and then determine what your needs are. And then we get to a point in the contract where we realize we're getting close to 10,000, maybe we need to back off, but it will not exceed 10,000.
Well, our most needed jobs. We need jobs.
And GIS is not only just a tool for making maps, but also doing analysis.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Having a person here is another job in the county. I completely respect and understand that.
I ain't talking about on that map part, I was talking about the whole overview. I guess I was going back to the EDC, what you were talking about. Y'all ready to vote?
We've made a motion, yeah, have we? Motion to approve.
Second.
The attorney to go forward and try to hash out this contract.
For the GIS map?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes.
Thank you.
I got a motion on the floor. I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Perry. Go ahead.
Comment.
Discuss.
Mr. Chairman, GIS was a very important tool that we did not have during the BP oil spill as it relates to maps of our bay and other things. So I think that this is a good project. I know our property appraiser has done some stuff, but hopefully this will enhance our ability to use this should we have another disaster such as BP oil spill, as having a GIS mapping system in place. So I'm eager to see this move forward.
We got a lot of calls wanting to know why, we don't have a map on our website. The staff, we get a lot of calls.
But it was just that outdated too, though.
Yeah, the old one there was outdated, wasn't updated, so it was doing more harm than good.
Yes.
We're about to, what I didn't mention is we received an $80,000 grant from the Department of Economic Opportunity to build a regional GIS database for our region, excluding Leon County since they have their own GIS program. But we've been working for the past year with all of our local governments, our county local governments, to identify mapping needs, future land use maps, tourist resources. And this is going to be a tool that's going to be unveiled here within the next month that citizens, elected officials, anyone can access And this is an online GIS system that I think everyone's going to be really impressed with. So in getting this grant, we were able to hire a full-time GIS planner who now has experience with everyone in our region. And now we're using these contracts with some of our counties to keep her employed and to continue to enhance that software, that program.
Okay. Y'all ready to vote? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That passed unanimously.
All right, thank you. I have one last thing before I take up any more of your time is the Triumph Letter of Support. In the ARPC board last year adopted a policy that if there's a municipality that is requesting a letter of support for a Triumph application from the ARPC, we adopted a policy that essentially says that the county representative is the one that has to officially make that request. So we did receive a request from the city of Carabel for a Triumph application that they would like to put in. It's a $2 million application for Carabel Airport hangar enhancements. They want to increase the number of hangars. I received that request, pulled up that policy, and notified, I believe Michael and Commissioner Jones that this request has been made. I just wanted to bring this to your attention. And the reason this policy was adopted was to prevent conflict if the city has a project that the county is in agreement with. You know, we serve both cities and counties and want to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a tough spot.
Can I make that motion?
It's on my report.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't have any questions for me, that's all I have.
I'm going back to them jobs. Y'all helping, y'all going on.
Well,
What y'all doing to help us find them?
That first project that I mentioned, the Franklin Long-Term Recovery Strategy, which is going to focus on economic development, that is a project that we're going to kick off in the near future. And we really hope that it's not just another plan that goes on a shelf. It's going to actually help you change your comp plan to attract the type of commercial activity that Franklin County really desires. So we're excited about that, and we really believe it's going to be an important tool with the county moving forward for economic development.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Next on the agenda will be Miss Marsha Johnson, clerk of the court. I guess we got Ms. Darrell.
Yes, sir. Ms. Marcia Johnson was unable to be here today. We do not have a report for the board. However, we do need to request permission to issue 2 manual checks. One is for a Gandy Printing, which is a mass mailing for the Visit Florida TDC grant. They actually required the postage be paid up front before they're able to actually produce the mailing, and that grant is time sensitive, so we did not have the request in time to get the check cut. So we do need a request to issue that manual check. And then we also have our inmate medical policy is up for renewal, and that renewal is actually coming in kind of as we speak. But the first premium is due by April 1st. So right now we don't have an invoice yet, but we will need to get that off as soon as possible. So if you all would approve that manual check as well.
Is that separate motions or?
I would think so. The subject matters are unrelated other than their manual checks. I would recommend separate motions.
On the TDC issue, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish for the
Second.
TDC, second by Commissioner Bowe. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
We don't have one there yet. He's still playing on 3,500.
Now we do the inmate medical.
The inmate medical amount for that manual check, I'm told, is not known to the penny, but it's in the rough amount of between $3,500 to $4,000.
Okay.
So you would have a separate motion to authorize a manual check in that amount.
I'll make the motion to pay the inmate medical.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Massey.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. This to do the inmate medical. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
That's it. Keep up the good work. Next on the agenda will be Mr. Allen Pierce.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to the last item, last item report here, because the mayor of Carabel is making all kind of motions there. So, City of Carabel is seeking a letter of support from the County Commission, as Mr. Zito said, for pre-application improvements to Carabel Airport. The city is seeking some $2 million in Triumph funds to build more sea hangars, new general aviation hangar, and more vehicle parking. Their pre-application is attached, so it's on your email. Once the city gets feedback from Triumph staff on the pre-application, they can move to the application stage, but they're requesting the letter at the pre-application stage, so.
I make a motion.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Master.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Burt.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I would like to say on behalf of what Mr. Rito presented, this came up at the ARPC, and I didn't wish to try to have a desire to try to speak for this board. That's one way to handle it like we're handling it, because it's all 5 of us together, not any of us separate. So just want to make sure you guys are aware of that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes unanimously.
Okay, let's go back to the top then, and I can rip this pretty quickly here. On Friday, number one, on Friday, April 5th, I participated in a meeting with Commissioner Parrish that was called by the Bureau of Agriculture to discuss the future of oyster aquaculture in the Apalachicola Bay. And the meeting went on for several hours, so some of the important points are the Department of Ag, as we know as DAX, has restructured its functions, and DAX now only promotes aquaculture. And that's what I said, only promotes aquaculture, hence the name of Bureau of Aquaculture. DAX will no longer participate in reshelling the natural bars, so if any reshelling is going to be done in the Apalachicola Bay at this point, it's going to be done solely by the FWC. This is a change in the life of my career here. It used to be DAX ran this kind of stuff. They had a barge, they had shelling piles. They're out of that business completely. And that's not good for the Bay as far as I'm concerned, but that's the way it is. Number two, Commissioner Parrish made it clear that if DAX is going to promote aquaculture, it needs to be done so that it does not create more conflicts with other users of the Bay. This is especially true of the kind of aquaculture leases that DAX is going to be using, which is the water column, and that's what DAX is proposing for the Apalachicola Bay. Commissioner Parrish recommended DAX limit the size of an individual oyster lease to 1.5 acres because any larger lease is going to require the capital in excess of what the average seafood worker has and can get. Therefore, large leases are more likely to be going to be sold to outside investors. DAX said they'd take an advisement and it would come back at some point. And last, the Bureau of Aquaculture said it will utilize those areas for aquaculture that were first identified in the 1985 survey of the Bay before any new areas are considered. But DAX is definitely promoting aquaculture in the Bay. Commissioner Parrish may be easily able to articulate what the 1985 survey areas are. I don't. I know they're on the backside of St. George Island, over there in the Miles and a couple areas, and then also what was known as Greenpoint, which is off of the high school, the new school. Those are the basic areas sort of surrounding the Bay is what they're trying to fill in before they do anything else. But they're pushing it. They're pushing it.
Well, looking, when they'll know, when will people know they can?
You can apply now.
You can apply now?
Absolutely. The application's open, and they're processing as we speak.
Mr. Parrish, didn't some of it around Rattlesnake Cove?
That what it was?
There's one over at, there's one over here off, just past Highway 65 on the mainland. There's two down in the Miles, and then there's one over at Goose Island.
Goose Island, yeah.
Now, some people are saying some of these places were grassed up. You cannot have these leases over grass beds. You can also not have them over public oyster bars. Anywhere there's a shell, it has to be a sandy area. So they were looking at, we talked to them about looking at the areas in the Miles down there, which used to be oyster bars, but now it's mostly just sand. I hope I talked about everything we discussed at the previous meeting about trying to make the leases smaller so that the average seafood worker may have a chance to be able to do that and get into the business. And the other issue that we talked about was not putting the leases in the middle of the bay where you're going to have conflicting uses. Then you'll have human conflict, which could lead to problems. And all these different industries need to work together. And I feel like there's a place in the bay for everybody. We just got to find the right place for each industry. And as Alan said, they're no longer, they're just a Department of Aquaculture now, so that tells you they're not supporting our wild-caught reefs. I will add something else real quick while I'm speaking here on this issue, is being approached again, does the commission support shutting this bay down? That's not nothing we need to discuss today. That's something that commissioners need to think about, because in the future, you're going to be asked that question, does the bay need to be closed? And I will say this real quick. If that is done, we all need to be in agreement, or we all need to be opposed to it. We don't need 3 commissioners saying, yes, we do, and 2 saying, no, we don't. And it's a bunch of finger pointing going on about who did what. So this is just something for the commissioner's information, to really genuinely think about it, talk to your constituents, whatever. But the question is going to come at some point in time, and they're gonna ask for the board's opinion on that. on that
All be
particular
one or
issue.
be none.
Huh?
I said, all be one or be none.
Well, we need to be united on
Yep.
whichever way we decide to do, but, you know, there's nothing that needs to be discussed or talked about today.
Right.
Just something for y'all to think about, because the issue, the subject matter is coming before the board at some point.
Yeah, Commissioner Massey, the reason it came, and I say this, Commissioner Parrish, you may correct me if I'm wrong, it sort of came up at the meeting because there is I won't say a consensus yet, but there is an opinion by some of the DACs that the Apalachicola Bay is getting into a spat deficit, meaning that they're harvesting so many of the mature oysters that there's not enough spat to repopulate the bars, and that is a concern. So one of the benefits of shutting the bay down would be to let every oyster out there produce the spat and get it back into the water column. I mean, I think, didn't they talk about a spat deficit?
Yes, that's true, Alan, but you also gotta remember, we have to be very cautious, because your FWC will be the one doing this. And then when they've shut down trout and redfish, red snapper in the Gulf, they've never opened it back up.
Right.
So you have to be, you have to know who you're dealing with here, and, you know, their line of thinking. And if they say, well, we'll open it back up when there's 400 bushels per acre in the bay, and it never gets there, guess what? It never opens. So this is things that the commissioners need to be thinking about, because if you vote as a board to shut the bay down and the bay never recovers to a certain level, it never opens back up. Then your legacy will be, he was one of the commissioners that shut the bay down. So these are things you need to think about, and make sure you are aware of the consequences of your actions, and we all want the bay to recover. I believe we can honestly say every board member up here wants the bay to recover. But that threshold of when does it ever reopen needs to be established before it's closed.
Well, what they gonna do with them people who, when they shut it down, you still got people that gonna be out of job, what gonna happen? They ain't talking about that?
No, they're not.
No, sir.
No, they're not.
They just gonna set them out there and
Yes,
No,
sir.
they're not.
put them out there in harm's way, huh?
Yes, sir, unfortunately. Okay, I'll go to item number 2 then. Mr. Langston here has been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and so we will now get to it. I recommend the board approve the proposed contract with Langton Consulting for restore-related services. Mr. Schuler has reviewed the contract. I've been advised by Langton Consulting that their current fee structure is under review by Treasury, and that the outcome of the Treasury review will be applied to Franklin County, so we keep in compliance with Treasury rules. Board action to approve the contract, and Mr. Langton himself is here, as well as his 2 associates. So I would get board action first, and then we'll introduce yourselves.
Alan, Mr. Chairman, their fees will be paid out of our
Yes.
Pot 1 monies
Yes.
as we.
Yes, as we utilize our services.
So I want to get that on as a point of record, because we don't have any money
Yes.
until we get some of these grants approved.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to
Second.
approve.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And Mr. Langton, you want to say anything?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
That pass unanimous.
Yes, good morning. Mike Langton, Langton Associates. I have with me Melissa Beaudry of my staff and Christine Lane. The whole staff, all 7, wanted to come, but because they love coming to Franklin County and Apalachicola, but I limited it to just the 3 of us today. But thank you very much for having confidence in us. We do this work for some of your surrounding counties. For instance, Commissioner Parrish, we have just about finished our 2nd year, 24 months working for Gulf County. We've gotten them a $2.8 million beach restoration grant announcement recently, and we just got another $1.1 million for them to buy their public safety building. We haven't gotten a dime. We haven't been paid a penny yet, because Treasury hasn't finally approved our requests. So we're in it for the long haul. We want to work for you guys and ensure you that you get these grants and that we help you administrate them. And when the time is right, we'll get paid. Someone said I'm a pretty crazy businessman to have 4 or 5 counties under that scenario, but we're keeping going, and we're happy to be part of your community and work with you and Alan. We also want to mention that we'll work closely with Chris and the Regional Planning Council, because the Pot 1 and the Pot 3, they just go hand in hand. And there's opportunities for you guys to pursue Pot 2 grants. And so having the opportunity to work with your staff and work specifically with Alan is exciting to us. So with that, I'll close, and if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay.
I say something?
You give the cards to Mr. Schuler, he'll pass them. And I say, Mike, you and I have talked before, basically where we are with part one is we have had several big ideas in the county, and we are looking to sort of get those fleshed out because we have about $8 million in part one money right now. And Treasury doesn't want to approve any more than $8 million, but in the years past, that $8 million, a majority of that was going to go to a beach renourishment project, and then that didn't quite go into fruition. And now a possibility is if the state of Florida puts up money for dune restoration because of Hurricane Michael, we would then look at pot one money to match that because we have a tremendous loss of dunes system here in the county. So that's our big pot one project if we get legislative assistance. So we'll know in the next 30 days about that. And then, so once that gets clarified, then we will begin to talk about the individual projects.
Exactly. And so the legislature, House has passed their budget, the Senate's passed their budget, but the conferees haven't approved the final budget yet. So there seems to be some movement around, trying to do some stuff with Michael. Senator Mumford has passed a bill asking for $315 million, but it's not in the appropriations process yet. And so we just don't know. And so we're going to continue to monitor that along with Alan and your staff. And hopefully, for the best, we'll have some additional dollars to use to match and marry for these needs. But we're here for you. We've handed out the card to you all. Please feel free to contact me directly or through your county administrator, or Mr. Schuler, or of course, Alan. We're at your disposal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Where your office at, main office?
It's in Jacksonville, but we sort of live out here in the Panhandle quite a bit because we are working for Franklin and Gulf and Taylor and Jefferson and Walton and who else? I think get most of them. And doing a little, trying to do a little work for Escambia County and a few others. So we've been a part of the Gulf Consortium since the beginning. We were part of the consultant team that was hired to write the state expenditure plan. So Melissa and I and some of the other members of my staff have literally been working on this for 3 years, and that's how we've gotten to know Commissioner Parrish and Commissioner Jones, because they've been so diligent in coming to all those meetings over those years, and they've represented you very, very well in those capacities.
Tell the rest of your staff that we used to be a whole seafood, but we about a 3/4 now.
It's still a delicious 3/4, and we'll keep coming back. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Okay, we voted on that? We voted? All right. So item number actually three. Board action to direct Dewberry to advertise bids for the repairs of temporary road on Alligator Drive and open those bids on May 21st. Temporary repairs include widening the existing road to 2 lanes, reworking the debris field, and putting down an asphalt surface. When this work is complete, the traffic lights will be removed. The county will turn the winning bid into FEMA. FEMA will use those funds to actually create a PW of the same value, and then Franklin County will award the bid consistent with the PW. This will ensure the Franklin County will get reimbursed the work to be done by the contractor. While I'd hope this work would get done by June 1st, it clearly will not, but we are making progress. All I can do is explain to the board and the public the complications of the Alligator Point Drive project have not changed just because we have outside consultants, being FCMC, involved. The location of the road and the repetitive damage it has suffered has made this project a poster child for multi-jurisdictional bureaucratic review. So if anybody wants to have anything to say, Alligator Point is apparently the place they go to say it.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish, second by Commissioner Jones. Any more discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimously.
Okay. Next page, item 4. Inform the board that FCMC assisted Franklin County in completing the HMG application for the purchase of 21 lots on Alligator Point. The board needs to be aware that I have operated on the assumption that if the board wants to allow anyone on Alligator Point the opportunity to sell out if they want to, so these 21 lots are not restricted to the future right-of-way for Alligator Drive. Approximately 7 of the 21 willing sellers are in the future right-of-way. The other 14 are scattered around the point. In my discussion with FCMC, is our expectation there'll be a second HMGP application if the offers coming from the first round are fair and worth accepting. It is still unknown whether Franklin County will be able to obtain the voluntary sale of all the necessary right-of-way to relocate the road. Depending on the ultimate length of the road moved, we still need 10 to 14 more lots in the right-of-way. So at this time, we only have 1/3 of the proposed right-of-way willing to sell. We hope that improves in round 2. Depending on the number of lots not willingly purchased by the board, we'll have to consider its future strategy. Such strategy could include condemnation of lots, or the county could be forced, and I say this with great hesitation and great resistance, the county could be forced to rebuild the road in its current location. The county, even with FCMC and the state's assistance, still has a tremendous risk ahead. The residents of Alligator Point need to continue to assist the county in working to relocate the road because we are not guaranteed to do that right now, and I cannot repeat that so many times because we could be headed down a path that we don't want to be on if we can't get a new right-of-way. And I just say that with just bile in my stomach.
Commissioner Boat, your thought, Mike? be good on that. We might need somebody, a mouthpiece to help us get that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's, we're not.
We might need some help with that.
You're right.
Okay, that's item number 4. Item number 5, provide board with a copy of a letter wrote requesting the $2.6 million of FEMA funds associated with repairs to Alligator Drive by Hurricane Hermine be de-obligated and rolled into a new project to cover all the damage done by Hurricane Michael. The letter was requested by the state to clarify the record that the damage done by Hurricane Michael will include the damage done by Hermine. You all have a copy of that letter in your file when I get it to the board. So that letter was directed by the state, so I wrote it. We've done item number 6, we've done item number 7, we've done item number 8, item number 9. The last item then is item number 10. FAC has coordinated a meeting in Marianna on Thursday that if you would like me to attend, it's for the counties of who've had hurricane damage. And since the meeting is run by the FAC, we're members of the FAC, Commissioner Jones and I have talked, it's probably appropriate that we have somebody there. And you all have a dedication down here, but I can go if you want me to go. If you want me to go, make a motion to send me to go.
Motion approved.
Second.
Got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Jones, second by Commissioner Master. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hit the road.
Okay, hit the road, Jack. And I'm done, Mr. Chairman, unless you have something for me.
Anybody got anything from Mr. Peters? Keep up the good work. Next on the agenda be Mr. Michael Marone, County Coordinator.
Trying my best, but I can't speak as fast as Alan. At the December 18, 2018 regular meeting, the commission authorized Weems Board of Directors to spend up to $50,000 from the Sales Tax Trust Fund to obtain updated pricing for the construction of the new building. Mr. Cannington, the Weems CEO, and his staff were working with the project architects, TRO John Brennan, to obtain this price, which they are told should be available by Friday, May 10th. Therefore, Weems will be on your May 21st agenda to present this amount and discuss this project further. A related Weems matter, the new building project was presented to the city of Apalachicola for approval last week. It was necessary to ask the city to review and approve the project again because it had been over a year since the project received its first approval. The city approved that project last week. Last Weems item at the last Weems Board of Directors meeting, there was a discussion related to the lease renewal of the hospital's arterial blood gas analyzer. An ABG analyzer measures the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the arteries to see how well the lung is functioning. Trust me, somebody told me that. During the discussion, it was pointed out that the hospital would save $1,079 by purchasing the ABG analyzer rather than continuing with the lease option. The purchase price of the analyzer is $8,275. Board action to authorize the $8,275 purchase of the ABG analyzer from the Sales Tax Trust Fund. There are additional savings that I didn't list here that they see by purchasing it outright. In other words, the technology doesn't turn over that fast in this type of equipment, so it can last 6 to 7 years, you know, and it would save them having to pay the lease plus the buyout. So they just buy it initially.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Burt.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any more discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Ms. Lori Schweitzer, your ship administrator, has submitted her new 3-year ship program administrative services contract for your review and approval. In addition, she also submitted the county's 3-year local housing assistance plan for your review and approval. The main purpose of the LHAP is to detail how each local government will expend funds allocated to them for each fiscal year. Ms. Schweitzer stated that Florida Housing has approved the county's LHAP. Board action to approve Ms. Schweitzer's Program Administrative Services contract and the LHAP, which includes the chairman's signature on the LHAP resolution and certification.
So moved.
I got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Parrish.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passed unanimous.
Before I get to that last item, I neglected to add something to, a couple things to my report. One was, and Commissioner Bolt, this will address you more, the the Florida's DOT have plans for the County Road 3, State Road 377. They're just gonna put some signage and I believe some markings on it. I will forward you all that email in case you have any questions for me or with the state. They close comments on that next week sometime. More importantly, item number 6, remind the board that the ribbon cutting ceremony for Olan Buddy Ward Park and Maritime Museum will be this Thursday, April 18th at 11 a.m. The public is invited. It's a very nice event. And I'm passing out invitations to you guys for another event, Elder Care Community Council, having Earth Day celebration at the Holy Family Senior Center. That's going to be Monday, April 22nd. And that is my report.
It's all, that day or night, evening?
I'm sorry, 11:30 in the morning, sir.
Okay, next on the agenda will be, you through?
Yes, sir, that's my report.
Good work. Next on the agenda will be Mr. Michael Schuler, County Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have a report for the board with any action items this morning or this afternoon.
All right, next on the agenda will be commissioner comment. Is there any commissioner comment? Well, you know, it's all, you've been in this thing, I've been in this commission a long time, and I guess I'm about the oldest one on here with the year. But I wasn't trying to, trying to make it look bad or nothing, Commissioner Bodo, but when we get hold to some rough decisions sometimes, and it's all just that's something we have to do. We go to people that trust us, and we can do it. And most times they wanna, they certify whether it's yes or no, but they want us to make them decisions. And the main thing, we got a tip-top staff. We got a good staff, and I trust them, and they keep us on top of things. So most times they get to them, and they'll tell us whether we're doing, which way to go. It'll be all right. Hard, but it's fair. Any more commissioner comment?
I appreciate your comments. And I think I've just have been in many public arenas where I've seen decisions obviously made by those individuals that have the responsibility like we do to make those decisions. And the spirit of that comment about a facilitator was simply to enhance the skills that many of us already have that our people depend upon us to make. I see what you're saying. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any more? Meeting adjourned.